Most people lose their AI deals before the call even starts. They're grinding on the best closing techniques, the best scripts, the best objection handling techniques, and the best way to handle our think about it. But the close isn't even decided at the end of the call. It's decided long before you ever pitch. And this is the same exact structure I use to scale my AI agency to 6 figures, and it changes every. So let me go ahead and show you how that works. So before we get deeper into this, there's something that I want you to understand, which goes by the saying of the trust stack. And it is actually why calls stall, because every B2B buyer needs to trust you before they buy. And that trust is built in layers and actually in order. So you cannot skip a layer, and if you skip one, the call simply stalls, because they will end up saying, I'll think about it, not because they need time, but because the layer wasn't built. You can see there are 5 layers of trust, starting first with your professionalism. Your professionalism just makes them feel like this person is legitimate, and just simply broken down by how professional you are, if you showed up on time, how prepared you are, and how your background looks like your setup, stuff like that. The second one is your competence. And what this is all about is that the prospect needs to feel that this person knows what they are talking about or doing. And the things that cause you to lose this layer of trust is by giving vague answers and you not having a clear understanding of their own world. The third one is understanding. And the client, or should I say the prospect, needs to feel like this person actually gets my situation. And the reason why this happens a lot is because you often rush past the discovery, run into the pitch, thinking that that is where the closing gets done. However, in most cases, the close is done before the pitch itself. And then the fourth one, which is actually very important, is the social. That and the client needs to feel like, okay, this person has done this for others and also someone like me. And obviously, if you do not have results, no examples, and nothing to reference, you're going to equate to having zero social proof, and that layer of trust is going to go away. The fifth one and the final one is basically your results. And this is when the prospect feel like this person can deliver for me. Because if they do not have that feeling in their head, it's going to be more like, okay, the maths doesn't just add up. Like, I won't be able to commit. And you can see if you skip any of this, it ends up with the saying from the prospect all the time, I'll think about it. And most calls stall at layer 3, which is understanding, because the person gets on the call, hears the problem, and then starts preaching immediately, which is you in this case. Well, in the prospect's point of view, they did not feel understood, and when someone does not feel understood, they simply don't buy. So right now, think back to a call you lost. Think about it. Which trust layer was broken down, or which one was it that you skipped? And after that, what did you do that caused you to skip it? And write that answer there. And once you have that, you would understand the fundamentals of why a call stalls in the first place. After that, you now know the 7 pre-close steps, because 7 out of the 9 steps on a B2B call happen before you pitch. And by the time you ask for the decision, the close is already built, or it isn't simply. And here's each one step by step and what it builds, with the first one being your frame control, where you basically set the agenda and position you as the one leading the meeting. And the reason why this matters is because if you do not control the frame, they do. And prospects who run their own calls do not close. They end up saying, I will think about it. And this is where the professionalism and competence trust layer is built. And here's a quick example of one, so you can use this to ideate and create your own version right here. After that, we have the situation diagnosis, and this is where you uncover their current state, which is basically what they've tried, where it's breaking down, and this is the part where they do most of the talking and you listen for 20% of the time. And these are the key questions you can ask. And always in this part, you should always go deeper when answers are vague. And the reason why this matters is because this is actually the most skipped part, because every extra minute here builds layer 3, which is basically understanding, and it gives you the exact numbers and language for step 3 and 4. So make sure to take notes, because you will use the exact words later. And in this step is basically where understanding will be built. So get your 3 key questions, and here also how you can go deeper if the answers are vague. Use this to ideate and write your own version for your service. After that, we have step 3, which is basically where you quantify the problem. And what this does is that it turns the vague problem into a dollar amount that they confirm with their own mouth. And this basically covers the pain amplification ladder, because you want to move them down through questions, not statements. Because there are 4 levels of pain. The first one being inconvenience, which is when it's annoying but manageable. Then we have a problem level of pain, which is where it's costing me at the time, money, or something else. And the third one is basically crisis, where this is seriously hurting my business. And the fourth one is basically the goal of where you want to move them through questioning is the emergency. This is where they have it in their head that every day I don't fix this, I'm actually losing money. So make sure to ask all these questions one at a time and wait for the answer before moving to the next. And the whole goal is to use your questions right here and move them from the inconvenient stage of pain amplification all the way down to the emergency level here. And as I've said, use your numbers right here to basically write down your quantifying sequences. And once you have that, we move over to step 4, which is basically the future state vision. And what this does is that it uses the exact numbers from step 3 to paint what solving this looks like. So make sure you do not ask generic questions. You actually use their numbers and you let them describe it. Then you say, what would that, let's say for example, $10,000 per month let you do? And then you also ask to get their level of commitment and urgency, which is right here, which is basically when do you want this solved? And once you have gotten the answers to all these 3 questions, you reflect it back to them, which you can see right here. And the reason why this matters is because they have just described their own outcome to you. They are now motivated by the destination they created, not the one you invented. And then after that, we have the expertise statement, and this is basically what bridges from their problem to why you can solve it basically. So basically positioning you as the bridge to taking them from where they are currently, where they have lots of problems, to the outcome that they defined basically. And you say it by basically saying your expertise statement. And the reason why this matters is because it builds layer 4, which is social proof, and layer 5, which is results, because they stop seeing you as a vendor and start seeing you as the match and the most obvious option to cross that bridge, because you are placing the bridge yourself. So use this as a base and make sure to ideate based on this and write one for the service that you offer. After that, we have step 6, which is basically the reverse engineering part. And what it does is that it shows the math that makes solving their problem feel simple and actually inevitable. And you want to go through it by basically reverse engineering their goal and making it seem that like it's actually so easy to achieve. And why it matters is because you're actually using their confirmed numbers and you're being conservative on top of that, which builds trust. So you're simplifying it to one big fix, which removes the overwhelm, and now success feels inevitable and hoped for. And this step 6 basically builds the results layer of the trust stack. After that, you want to get explicit buy-in before you pitch, because they have to invite you in. So you can say something like this: based on everything you've shared, then you summarize the whole situation. I'm confident that we can help you. Would you like me to show you how it works? Then you wait for them to say yes. And the reason why this matters is because most people skip this and launch straight into pitching. And when you ask for the permission, they are mentally committing themselves to listening to your pitch. And the pitch simply becomes a confirmation of a decision that they have already moved towards, not a pitch that they are evaluating. Basically. So here is basically where you state your pitch, which you should already have if you're watching this. So now here's how you can quickly audit your last close call against these 7 steps that I showed you. First of all, the frame control check. Did you do it? Yes or no? If not, where did it break? The cities do the same for the situation diagnosis, the same for quantifying the problem, same for future state vision, expertise statement, reverse engineering, and permission to explain, because your close was decided somewhere in that table. And when it comes to running the structure on real calls with real prospects, that is actually where the skill gets built. But the structure only works if the right clients are booking those calls in the first place. So that is knowing what to offer them, how to package it, and how to price it so the math works before the conversation even starts. And that's a separate layer most people haven't even figured out. And if you genuinely want help with that, I work with people one-on-one to build their offer, install their systems, and close their first client. There's a link in the description where you can get on a call with me and you walk away with a clear game plan for what to build and who to sell it to. Now that you know the 7 stages, or should I say the 7 steps, there's the objections, because objections always come. Because eventually when you get through all the 7 steps, that doesn't mean that objections won't come up. They will. And here's how to handle them and a reframe that changes how you experience them. Because the hardest prospect to close is the one with 0 objection. Someone who says, sounds great, let me think about it, with no pushback, simply isn't engaged with your offer in the first place. They are just being polite before they ghost you. However, objections mean that they are actually thinking and considering your service. They are telling you exactly what beliefs need to change before they can say yes. So see it like this. Objections lead to engagement, which leads to the path to the close. And here's a simple framework that I like to use when it comes to handling objections. I like to call it the ADR framework. You want to first ask, then break, then replace. And by asking, you make them explain why they believe what they believe. Because most beliefs collapse the moment that they are examined out loud. Then you break that belief. You show them how things actually work using logic and let them arrive at the conclusion themselves. Then you replace the existing belief with a new belief, and you name the new belief explicitly, because if you do not state it, the old one simply returns. And here's a quick example. Let's say your prospect raises an objection like, okay, I don't have the budget right now. So you start with the first part of the framework, which is the ask. So what determines whether someone is worth the investment? Then you break it, which is basically if we are recovering leads them. Then the answer, then after that you want to break that belief. And you simply say, if we're recovering leads you've already paid to acquire, what's the real cost of doing this? Then in their heads they would realize that their old belief doesn't actually make logical sense. Then you replace that old belief with a new one by explicitly stating it. And you can say the cost of doing nothing is higher than the cost of doing this, which makes a lot of sense. So when objections come up, you make sure to handle one and end up with, does that make sense? Then you may ask what else is on your mind. Then you handle the next and you repeat until nothing is left. And then you can ask for the call, which is when you can say, so Alex, you want me to set that up for you? And wait for the person to speak, basically. So now write down your 3 most common objections and write down how you break it down using the ABL framework, using the reality question, the system question, and the new belief. And once you have gotten across the objection stage, you get to the close on the call. Because getting to yes in the conversation is not the same as actually getting paid. Because buying intent decays the moment they hang up. Because if they pay on the call, your close rate is obviously higher. However, if they pay 24 hours after the call, the close rate is within 40%. Within 48 hours, it's 20%, and after 48 hours, you're simply chasing. And what I want you to understand by this is that when you ask for the close and they say yes, or they give you the positive answer to your close, you want to get them to pay at that moment, because if you do not get them to pay on the call, you'll likely be looking at a 40% chance of making them pay. So you see, every hour between the call and the payment is a window for doubt, distraction, and second guessing, which you can see here how it is broken down. So that's the full structure, comprising of the full stack framework, the 7-step structure, the pain amplification ladder, the ABR objection handling framework, and everything you need to close AI deals on the first call. And now there are 2 ways to move forward from here. If you want to work with me directly when it comes to building your offer, building your systems, knowing who to sell to, closing them, and even delivering, you can click the first link in the description if you like that level of support, and we get on a call and you walk out of that call with a clear understanding and game plan on how to achieve all those things I've listed and make an income out of this big AI opportunity. Or if you want to figure this out yourself, you need to learn how to book people on calls before you even close them in the first place. And I made a video where I break down my exact outreach framework for AI agents. So I'd recommend you check that out, and I'll link it right here. Anyways, that's all from me today. I'm Ahmed, and I will see you in the next one.